start recording now. All right, welcome to my janky little snuffed side podcast. I'm gonna call this Extinguished with Del and Gersh. We were yapping about the game and decided other people would want to hear our opinions too because I'm a narcissist. So let's get into it. Um, I guess so. My first question is I obviously have my own perspective about like how my very first original tribe was. It's where I built my relationships with Spencer and Fraser. But I think your original tribe, Ohio, I have no idea what the dynamics there were. And granted, I had like met a number of the people in that tribe in the swap after like right after, and I'm sure there were some dynamics from that original tribe that then fed into it, but I'm curious if you can give us like a rundown on what like how was like at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So basically round one, I pretty much like got to work immediately. I think like by day two or three maybe I had an alliance with John, Fifi, and Lav, and that was from just being active in challenges. We kind of agreed we didn't want to go after each other. Um, but then like also just from my own like personal connections, I had like a slightly smaller alliance was me, Mads, and John, and we called that the Mads lads. Um and I think I was the only person who Chloe decided to talk to. So I've determined at this point, just from my experience in orgs, that I just am Survivor Charlie Brown.
Hmm.
um my like trust rankings at the very beginning were like, I think it was John 1, Mads 2, and Chloe 3, and then they were the first three eliminated, which was very
It's not a good
unfortunate.
sign.
Yeah, no, not at all. But yeah, pretty much Chloe was just inactive with everyone except for me, and I did try to make a push to get Kyle out because Mads had informed me and John about an alliance that had everyone in the tribe except for me, John, and Chloe, and having alliances with everyone else. For me, it just made the most sense to get rid of Kyle, but I couldn't get that to go through. And yeah, and then we made it to the swap, and pretty much everyone that was OG Ohio I had an alliance with already. And so this is when I kind of like really started to play my game from my point of view of like, I pretty much told John like I was propping up Lav to be like the figurehead of like the Ohio tribe, so that if anything did happen, it would probably land on Lav before any of us. And the idea was pretty much to stay tribe strong, um, hope that the other tribe goes to tribal council after we vote out. Like, I mean, I was pretty much just trying to get Brooke immediately,
Hmm.
and the thought was like, if we looked like we were staying tribe strong at our place, they would just go after Kyle, which would have been beneficial for me anyway. So that was kind of the early game structure for me, and it just fell apart.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially the idea of going tribe strong to get out Kyle as like the person who's left out. Um, did you have any idea that uh, like Fifi, I mean, from my perspective, Fifi seemed to be willing to work with anyone, and I don't know who she was truly loyal to, but I know she had an alliance pretty quickly with Spencer and Jason, and then she had also been talking to uh, Brooke and I a good bit as well. Do you think that she just wasn't that close to, let's call it like John? Or was her gameplay just be good with everyone and follow the momentum?
I think it was definitely be good with everyone. But the thing that like, and I don't know for sure about this, but I also have suspicions that like her and Mads actually were talking quite a bit. And
Hmm.
at least like from my perspective, like Mads was not very like frugal with information. He gave it out pretty easily. So I do think that there's a world where Fifi also just kind of knew that like me, Mads, and John were working together and was trying to eliminate that possibility as well.
Yeah. From my perspective, when I came in, it felt to me like Fifi was closest to Lav and Mads of the original OHOWs in terms of who she would mention and whatnot. And obviously, that's all kind of like what people want you to perceive. But I didn't feel like you and Fifi were that close at that point in time. Um, Not that it was like necessarily like you guys weren't working together, but it just didn't strike me as okay, Fifi and Kirsch are a duo in any way.
Yeah, I think a lot of our relationship honestly was like out of necessity at a certain point. I think we kind of started to realize like, okay, we have to keep some OHAs around. And we were just together the whole time. And I mean, at the beginning, it was pretty easy to just like coordinate with her and get things to go our way. But I definitely never felt like Fifi was necessarily like someone that I was going to go to the end with just because of our relationship. It was like pretty, I don't know how to put it, like we weren't talking like I was talking with like John or with Mads or with you or with like a good portion of the cast, even Spencer. Like, yeah, I think it was like our relationship was almost directly game affiliated. And then I think at a certain point, the difference between us was like I necessarily wasn't willing to let go of that. And I think Fifi was chomping at the bit to let go of that. So,
Makes sense. And I think too, my perception is Brooke was always like super aggressive in terms of like putting people together and then hoping that play worked. Like it happened on Taupo, it happened on Ohow. He tried to do it at Merge, and that's when it finally, sorry, it finally backfired for them. Um, I'm surprised, kind of in hindsight, that you went along with that Salad Bowl alliance, choosing to go for John when like I guess I'm curious as to why you went through with it when perhaps you could have like rallied like you, Lav, John, and then maybe another group to like do something different if you felt like you were losing your number one.
yeah, I think there were two variables there pretty much. One was like at a certain point, like I did just realize like John is not being active today, and that's not helping.
Hmm.
Um, and like the votes were going that way. I also had like I couldn't figure out during the game if it was Fifi or if it was Mads that was like the one truly like flipping
Mm.
because Mads came to me and pretty much like framed it as like, oh, Fifi doesn't want to vote with like OGO how. And then he kind of like proceeded to throw John under the bus a little bit to me. And like I don't think he was lying, but he pretty much told me about like this conversation that him and John had had the night before where uh pretty much John was saying to Mads like, oh, like obviously I like this three that we're working with, but Gersh is like doing a lot of the social lifting and like we have to keep an eye on that and we need to probably cut him at some point. And it's so early in the game that like that's kind of the second factor as I almost feel like I got a little petty that round and I was like, all right, John, like I'm doing the social lifting, then you do it. And it just didn't work out for him at all.
Yeah. That's actually interesting too because my perception was Fifi was the most social player from OHOW originally. Like you and I had good one-on-one conversations, and I know Spencer really liked talking to you as well. But I don't think you and Brooke were ever best friends.
Yeah.
Um, so when John tried to flip it off of him, he had like made this whole speech about how like Mads was leaking, which I guess goes back to him leaking that other alliance to you, and then also I think as part of it came up that like you were running the tribe, which to me at that point in time, I was like, Gersh, really? Like, not that I didn't believe you could have done it, but I feel like I had heard about some other alliance that like didn't include you specifically. And so I was like, how is Gersh running this tribe if he's getting left out of alliances? Like, it seems to me, knowing that Fifi's in the Salabo, Fifi has her alliance with um, Jason and Spencer. Fifi seems to have a good relationship with Lab. Like, why would Fifi not be the one running the tribe? So the hindsight on that is actually quite interesting to me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think also like part of it was like I pretty much came into that like swap. Like I think it's in the recap somewhere. Like I was like, I just got swap blessed. Like I have all my allies. Like how could
Hmm.
this go wrong? And so like pretty much immediately I was just kind of in detective mode. Like me, you, and Spencer were in the voice call for one of the challenges, and like it was like really slight subtle stuff, but I was like I feel like I did clock like pretty early that you were kind of between Spencer and Brooke, and I
Hmm.
was aware that like Spencer and Brooke weren't necessarily the closest. So I like went to John and I was like pretty much saying like we should break up the duo of you and Brooke because I was under the impression that like Spencer was kind of like out in no man's land to a degree.
Hmm.
And I think there's like a couple of instances where it's like I was reading our chat from like pre-merge and you were coming to me saying like people think me and Brooke are a duo. I don't know where that's coming from. And I was like sitting there like, is John leaking everything already? And I was like lying to you, but like trying to keep it like subtle because I was like, oh, like I don't know where that could have came from. And it was really funny because it's like I don't know. I just feel like if John had been like any more active, Fifi probably doesn't flip. That's just still like the one thing I just don't know about because like Fifi and Mads just like completely went rogue on that round, and I'd never really understood why because I felt like it was beneficial for all of our games to just try to keep that structure for around the bare minimum.
We'll have to get a second episode with them to explain that. The
Yeah.
mystery is there. I think at that point in time too, like the whole Brooke Dell duo thing, I don't think I was that committed. Like you said, I was like between them because I
Yeah.
was more aligned, I guess, with Brooke simply because we had been in that like at the very beginning of the game I did not like Brooke. I thought Brooke was like they had been very inactive and then they showed up and were like, "Hey, let's get in an alliance together." And I was like, who am I to say no? Sure. And then that group of four had like kind of works pretty good and then we swapped and I was like and Brooke had offered to do the close ally thing with me and give up their search. And so I was the whole time I was like, okay, I mean like Brooke is doing all the right things that makes me think they do truly want to be a good ally to me. But at the same time, I think on a fundamental level, there's a certain element of being able to like bro out with someone and just like Spencer and I had a lot of pretty genuine conversations that turned into more game related. And as we were going through that swap too, because he had gotten in with Jason and Fifi, he had then started sharing that information back with me about how like he had heard that Brooke was likely a target in that Jason Fifi conversation, like Brooke was getting looked at. And so Spencer sharing information that I didn't have access to in any other way was what really kind of put me on to working with him because I think like yes, having a close ally where you're doing the same things is nice, but having an ally who has access to information that you don't have is so valuable and is like generally like this type of setup that I'm most keen to get myself into because information is power.
Yeah, for sure.
So interesting. Okay, is there anything else about the swap that you have questions on or topics?
Um, I think you summarized pretty well. Like, yeah, I guess my thing, like, that I was the most curious about was just whether you were more invested in Brooke or Dell or Spencer.
I'm definitely most invested in Dell. Myself, number one.
But
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I don't think I committed. I'm very much, it's hard for me. I wasn't truly loyal to anyone until until Brooke went out. And then it was like me, Fraser, and Spencer being like, all right, guys, seems we're in a bit of a tight spot. How do we want to finagle it from here? And at that point, I was like, these guys. And then once we got through a couple rounds, like working together, I was like, these guys have my back. I have theirs. Like now I'm loyal. Um, but usually I play in a whoever is offering me the most in the moment type situation, that's where I'll rock. Because honestly, Gersh, like if we like we had had a number of conversations that were pretty like I'm interested in working with you type chats and whatever, but it didn't really progress to like the next level at that point in time. I think if I had felt the need to make it more overt, or if you had approached me in some way and we were like, hey, let's like really go with it, I could easily have just been like, yeah, screw Brooks, screw Spencer. Like I'm throwing all my eggs in the basket with Gersh because I think of the people on that OHAV swap, I felt best with you, and I also felt pretty good with Mads and Lav, I would say. Mads because we had one really good conversation before he disappeared, and then Lav talked me off the ledge when I failed at my puzzle. So I did appreciate him for that.
I I think like also like Lav and Brooke are kind of like a similar archetype in a way. Like
Hmm.
Lav was also pretty aggressive with like the way that he approached the game and the strategy of it. And like I feel like we had similar ideas on that end of like if this person is aggressive but they're actively like choosing to loop you in on it, like why would you get rid of that person?
Yeah.
Um and I think that's what benefited Lav the most. It's like by the end of the season, it almost felt like being aggressive and a little loud to a degree, like was working for quite a few people. I had the same opinion on like Jason as well. Like there were a couple people that they were so visible, but
Hmm.
not getting targeted because of it. And like I don't know, that was just something interesting I gathered from that.
Yeah, I can believe it. Um, okay. Then I guess this kind of leads nicely into, I was gonna say the early merge, but is there anything from your second swap that you want to expand upon? I guess I don't really remember who you swapped with and whether any of those relationships had like an impact on your game down the road.
Yeah, so our swap tribe was originally it was me, Fifi, Kyle, Vince, and Kyler. Um, and at that point, like I was so ready to get rid of Kyle. I was like, I've lost all of my allies, and now I'm on a tribe with the one guy that was targeting me from the original tribe, and that's
Yeah.
no bueno. So I pretty much moved pretty quickly to get Kyler and Vince, like as soon as that tribe hit, and I was like, okay, let's get rid of Kyle because he's inactive. And I actually think because I had lost so many allies at that point, because I was kind of on the fence about like where Fifi and I stood like long term,
Yep.
I really invested in Kyler
Hmm.
a lot at that switch. And like Kyler's still like one of my favorite people from the season, like by far. We had a ton of like really good conversations, and he just seemed like someone I could vibe with really well,
Yeah.
which is why I got like very fixated on like not going after Kyler uh,
Hmm.
at any point in time. Um, for Vince, it was like I liked Vince and I liked talking to him, but it was almost the same thing as Lav with him. Like it was like you're doing a little too much, a little too early, and you're gonna get caught for that. So I almost like in my mind like shifted the structure that I had from the beginning
Hmm.
to like now Vince is kind of that figurehead, and I know that Vince can go before I do. What I did
Yeah.
not expect was Vince like turning on me. Like that was one of the biggest shocks in the game to me. I was just like, why is Vince throwing my name out?
Yeah. Maybe we jump ahead a little bit to the Vince vote because essentially the way that that whole day had gone down is that I think Anna had come to you and I saying, "Hey, your name is out. It came from Vince." And then in reaction, I would say to an extent, both you and I were like, "Okay, interesting. I'm interested in working with Anna and Lav and Tristan and Fraser to vote out Vince." As a result of that, I had done my own investigations, let's call it. I had explicitly called out Vince, been like, "Why are you throwing my name out?" And then he denied it and was like, "This came from Anna, whatever." Did you have like what happened from your perspective that day? I assume you heard it from Anna. Like, is there anything else that happened throughout that day that you think is notable?
Um, so I think this is kind of something I clocked on Vince, and I don't know if you got this read either, but like Vince liked to do the move of like he would come to you and like pretty much like try to like get you to say names. And it
Hmm.
was very interesting to me because the round before that, Vince had been telling me during the Kyler vote, Vince had been telling me like, oh, Tristan is saying you and Dell is like possible like things, possible names to go.
Hmm.
Um, and then the next round, Anna's telling me that Vince is saying that, and I almost felt like that was kind of like because then the next round or during that round, he came to me and like it also felt like he was doing that where he's like, oh well, like I don't know who to go here. Like, what are you thinking? And
Mm.
I kind of danced around it, and then like I don't know, like it felt like Vince's strategy almost that I clocked was like get other people to say the name and then push it as they said it instead of I said it. And like I think he was really just fishing for names to push that like vibed with his strategy, but
Yeah.
being able to say someone else said it, which is why I believed Anna more than I believed Vince because of that information.
Yeah, I had pretty much no trust in Vince that round anyway, because I mean, obviously during the Brook round, he threw his vote on me and had, I mean, more or less shown zero desire to like be a genuine ally to me. So, of course, I'm like, okay, Vince, whatever. But it was interesting because later that day, he had kind of circled back and was like, oh, we should have like an oh how thing, like e- even made an alliance of me, Fraser, Spencer, Vince, and was like, "Hey guys, you're really who I'm trying to work with here." Blah 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 blah. So then I was like, "This is a lot of like effort for him to like really be throwing my name out." So then I had confronted him about the Anna thing, and he had kind of like given me the thing. I don't know. I think they're both guilty, is what my general takeaway from there was. Like, yes, I'm sure Vince was fishing, but at the same time, like Anna did give him my name. So clearly I wasn't a priority for Anna at that point in time, which is what like had set me up in a way for being so willing to take out Anna the next round, where I was just like, yeah, I mean, neither of you really seem to care for me, so let's just take whatever's convenient and go back and forth between them.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this, but like I was fine with Anna going that round too, honestly.
Hmm.
Anna was someone that I feel like I'd kind of clocked as like kind of the same way as Fifi is like, okay, like she wants to work with me now, but long term, there's no way that like I get far with her, which was why I was like fine with it happening. I think even if I knew that like you guys were voting Anna, I probably wouldn't have voted for her just because at the time, like I still think it was in my best interest for someone like a Shep to go.
Yeah, I think that's super valid. I want to jump back a little, like to the very first round of merge when Brooke went, because I'm curious, do you think you were the source of Brooke's name being the immediate topic of discussion there, or do you think it came from someone else?
I think I would say it was Vince.
Okay.
And the reason was is like so at Oh How 3, like the one where Vince was swapped with me,
Hmm.
that round where they were arguing on the challenges, he was like venting hard in the Oh How tribe chat and was like pretty much just throwing like both of you under the bus because he was like pretty much pushing that narrative like from that swap, like, oh, like none of the Taupos like me, like Dell and Brooke are running all of it. Like we need to get them as soon as we could get to the merge. Like I feel like he really set it up. I do think when we got there though, because of the second swap, like I absolutely was fine with it being Brooke for that reason. Like
Yeah.
I kind of figured Brooke knew, that like because like I was pretty short with them, and like the conversation, I just kind of figured like, yeah, we both know that like we're not really working together.
Yeah, and it's funny too because Brooke definitely wanted Vince out as well. So those two were just clearly going for each other, but I don't think Vince was seen as particularly threatening at that point in time because who was he really with? Whereas I Brooke and I had swapped together the whole time, and I do think that makes it um like a visible reason for you to target someone. Though obviously slightly frustrating on my end because it's like I hadn't really done anything I felt to become a target other than just existing with someone. Like I hadn't picked I didn't pick Brooke for the swap or anything like that, so it was pretty just like, okay, well, here we go. Um, but interesting. Okay. And then the next vote after that was Kyler. And obviously, you had talked about feeling close to Kyler from that swap. What's interesting too, and I don't know if I've talked about this at all, is that I had an alliance with me, Kyler, and Lav that round. And I had also set up one with me, Kyler, and Anna as well. And I didn't go into those alliances expecting to immediately blindside Kyler and Anna. I was trying to diversify off of the Taupos. And also to as Brooke was getting voted out, me, Spencer, and Frazier came together and we were like, okay, there's 9 other people in the game right now. Each of us are going to take 3 people and try to become close to them so that we have information everywhere. And so Frazier was objectively supposed to be working on Kyler and Tristan, but I got looped in with Lab. This is all very rambly, but I didn't expect it to go to Kyler that early, but I let it happen once Lav was had like safety without powered himself out because I knew if Lab was around, I would then get guilted into having to deal with Kyler's name being out there. But with Lab gone, I said, all right, this is just gonna happen.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
yeah, it's funny in hindsight too because knowing now that you were closer to Kyler than that, like we probably could have had like a more genuine, like actual side of the game that was maybe like I don't know how close you felt to Lab, but like Kyler, Anna, me, you, Frazier, like Tristan, like that's 6 at the halfway point. Like the game could have gone very differently there. Maybe if you and I had been more honest as into like who we actually like saw ourselves working with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think to a degree too with that is like I definitely played the game scared a little bit because of like, it was pretty early on. You could tell like there weren't a ton of secrets. Like I feel like a lot of stuff got around pretty
Hmm.
quickly, and I couldn't necessarily identify like where that was coming from. Um, the Jason Lav like beef that ran throughout the whole season, it felt like was a source of it. I thought like my perspective on Jason was like he's kind of playing similar to us and like kind of get in good with everyone, like have those conversations. But I thought Jason had like a more loyal side, and I just didn't think I was a part of that, which is why uh, I was afraid to pretty much say anything to Jason like about the game like at all because I figured it would almost immediately get back to everyone else. And I almost had like the same perspective on you as well, just because I like feel like pretty early on clocked that like you were playing the middle once we did get to the merge, and like I figured you were pretty loose with the information, which is why like my avenue was Spencer because I didn't think Spencer was like I thought Spencer was on that side, but was kind of more of like Jason and him were really close, and Jason is vouching for him, but also kind of like dragging him at the same time. It felt like so. I was like trying to like in my head, I was like trying to snap Spencer out of like you can make it to the end on that side, but they're not going to like respect your game basically, and that was my pitch with him pretty
Yeah,
much through the merge.
that makes sense. I guess I don't think I was loose with information, but I understand the perception that I could have been simply by existing in kind of a unchained, unloyal to anyone state, at least like outwardly. Um, I also was curious the whole game because I was close to Spencer from the swap onwards, and I don't think he ever really lied to me in our relationship from that point onwards. Um, but he would constantly tell Fraser and I how no one took him seriously and blah 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 whatever, you know. So it was interesting to hear on the last episode of Snuffed with the Round Table when people were like, "Yeah, Spencer's a terrible liar. I never believed him anyway." I had thought that his like kind of shtick, I guess, was coming across more genuine than it was. Do you think there's some like hindsight revision there in terms of like how Spencer was perceived? Or do you think people like throughout the season were actually like, yeah, Spencer's just like pretending to be this good old boy?
Uh, I think Spencer. I think it's like a little bit of a combination of both. I think Spencer, when like you really started to press with him, like would disappear, and like obviously that was kind of like okay, like we were just having a conversation 10 minutes ago, and I've said this thing now that like felt like it was important, and you're gone now, which I think might be where like the bad liar thing is coming from.
Hmm.
But I also think a lot of people's perspective on Spencer throughout the season was based off of like almost Jason entirely.
Mm,
I think, at least from my perspective, like I thought for sure like Jason and Spencer are like a really tight duo. Like that's where I had Spencer put was like Spencer doesn't really necessarily talk with Fifi or Topher or Shep, but because like Jason is on that side, he's working with that side. And so like Jason often because Spencer's name, I mean, was probably what like every round of the merge. I swear, like I think it started with Kyler pushing Spencer the round he got voted out. I think Anna and Tristan were trying to get him at the Vince round at a certain point. Like he was always out there, and every time I brought it up to Jason, Jason was like, "Oh, but like, why would we go for Spencer? Like, he doesn't
yeah.
do anything." Like, I feel like in touchy subjects, like Spencer got like dragged because of that narrative that Jason is pushing of like, "Oh, well, he's just a goat," you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like touchy subjects helped me believe that people believe that narrative too. Because for me,
Mm-hmm.
I had a more similar opinion of Tristan because Anna had told me how, okay, it was Tristan's first game. He would ask her questions about how things worked. Like he would constantly be like, let's talk game. And I'd be like, hey, let's talk game. And then he would like say nothing to me. And I'd be like, or like Tristan and I just like never talked really like actual strategy. And I was like, okay, who is this guy? So like that was my perception of Tristan. So then when Spencer got dragged like that, I was like, oh, people really do believe this because like on the flip side, I was having like hours long calls with Spencer just like on a near daily basis about like how we were going to position ourselves in the game. So it was I wasn't sure how incorrect my perception was.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever like fully bought into Spencer being a goat because like I think I was also in the same boat. Like I was talking to Spencer quite a bit, and like I did see the vision.
Hmm.
Um, I think it was just fully like Jason was pushing that narrative pretty hard, and I think the reason that we saw that being like a lot of Spencer answers versus Tristan answers was because of that. Because I think Topher and Tristan were a lot closer than like it was ever really let on.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think like think basically Spencer was getting pushed out as that narratively, while Tristan is kind of being protected by that narratively from the people who are kind of making the narrative of the season.
Yeah, I think from like maybe post Earns to the following round, like that's when the Tristan Topher relationship like was something that I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like, hmm.
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting.
It was at Earns for me because during that round, like it was like 3 or 4 minutes after votes were due. Like Lav is still typing in our alliance chat, like the naysayers, like about the vote, like asking Fraser what he's doing, asking Tristan what he's doing, and like we had landed at a certain point to like vote Topher. I think Fraser pushed it, was like, oh well, I'd rather vote Topher here, and like
Hmm.
Tristan like backed out on that hard, like
Yeah.
immediately was like, oh well, I'm not voting Topher, like I have to vote someone else, and then it ended up being Shep, and it was just that one vote. But yeah,
Yeah, because it was interesting because it was supposed to be Jason originally, I think, on that side, but then because Lav thought he could move his vote, get someone out, whatever, it couldn't be Jason because of like some revote count. I can't remember the exact nuances, so it had to be like Shep or Topher essentially. And so it was interesting to me that it was like we're going to Shep, we're going to Shep. Like Topher wasn't even considered, and like that I think moment when it was like we're switching to Shep was the moment I was like, oh, hmm.
yeah, it was very telling. I think that was kind of when the cards were shown there.
I'm surprised they just like didn't do more with it because like I know they pulled off Spencer going home the immediate next round, but like I don't think Tristan was a part of that. I just Topher was very very good at this game. Let me be clear, but I'm almost surprised that he didn't do more with Tristan on the side and kind of like build that up because I think once they made their Spencer move, he was just like so in with the like Fifi threat level Shep type thing that I don't know where else he was gonna go.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree because I thought for sure that like Tristan was gonna flip after the urns and like really like commit to Topher, and I figured Topher would have done that as well. But that was the other thing too. So like at the urns round, Topher like came to me the night of and like kind of like was really pushing hard for like Fifi to potentially be a vote, which
Hmm.
was really interesting to me. And I think ultimately that's why I was so like stuck on like, okay, get Jason out at the twin urns, because from my point of view that side was like Jason was almost the core of it. Like I'm seeing Jason, Spencer, Topher, and Fifi,
Hmm.
and like to me like Spencer never really seemed that close with Fifi or Topher, and like Topher's
Yep.
pushing Fifi now. Like I was like, I feel like Jason is the one who's kind of holding this side together, and
Agree.
that's why for me it was like Jason going is the most beneficial because most likely you see that side collapse. And I mean honestly, it kind of did after he left. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I also feel I like obviously I don't regret any part of how my my game played out considering like I ultimately ended up winning, but at the Vince vote, I had really felt very close to Jason and Topher at that point in time, and I had kind of given them a light heads up that I was considering voting for Vince, blah blah blah, and I felt most guilty about not being honest with Topher at that point in time because we had had like a lot of just like casual conversations. But then the very next round, he had told, I guess, the original purple chat. What were they called? Purple, whatever, the purplers that I had like given everyone a heads up, like I had told him that it was going to be a Vince vote, which obviously then looked bad on me, and that like kind of shattered my trust in Topher. But ultimately, like I more or less betrayed him first. But I think if that hadn't happened, I would have approached like my relationship with him pretty differently too. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Uh, a lot of what ifs.
for sure.
All right. I think that was a lot of what was on my mind, like just understanding your perspective of like where you were coming from in those rounds. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on already?
Um, I definitely had something and now it's gone. I think pretty much ultimately by the time that I was eliminated, from my point of view, is like Fifi, Topher, Jason are like the must get outs, and then after that, it was kind of play from there. Um, I do think, honestly, like sticking around, I would have probably been looking to eliminate you before the end too. But I mean, if you went on that immunity run, it's why I asked Fraser at final jury. I was like, I get that like you couldn't do anything about this, but was it at least a thought to get rid of Dell? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect, I feel like if you had told me that you had never planned to vote me out, I'd be like, I would almost disrespect you more because it's like, I don't know, I don't get like I'm always thinking about how I can betray people or, when's the right moment to stab someone in the back. Like I'm constantly thinking about that. So if someone isn't saying the same thing to me, I'm kind of like questioning exactly what their their plan or gameplay is.
yeah, for sure. And like, I also like pretty much from the John vote, like I think the biggest shock to me was like every single OHAL at that swap was like, oh, I really like Dell. And I think Fifi and I were the only two that clocked it and were like, okay, like, yes, like we all like Dell, but that's also an issue. Like, and no one seemed to go for it. And like, there were multiple times where I was just like subtly hinting at, like, hey, Dell's playing a good social game. We should do something about that. And it never went anywhere,
Yeah, I think
which
from
was
my
like,
perspective, like there's like such a double-edged sword to being like a social player. And I guess I don't view myself as like a fully social player, but I know that I have that ability if I need to. And coming into that swap down numbers, my whole thing was like, yes, this will probably put a spotlight on me in terms of like Dell can be social, Dell can like win people over, whatever. But it was like as long as they prefer me and like everyone has like some slight like desire to work with me over Brooke or Spencer or Jason, fair enough. Just get further and then deal with the ramifications later.
for sure. I think that's why, like, at a certain point too, I was pretty much just saying like, you're playing a great game because I had pretty much come to accept like, I don't think there's a world where I can pull any numbers to get it to go against you. Um, I think by the end of the game, Lav did kind of end up being like my number one.
Hmm.
Just to touch on that as well, I thought it was funny in the podcast when they were saying like, oh, like I don't think anyone would have voted for Lav. I 100% would have voted for Lav in the correct scenario.
Yeah.
Um, just because of like how we did play. I think that kind of like dampened my perspective on Spencer as well, or not Spencer, Jason,
Hmm.
uh, because of their beef. Like I always took Lav as like a pretty straightforward guy, and
Yeah.
so like to be beefing with Jason, I was like, okay, I feel like this is more a Jason thing than a Lav thing, and that was just my perspective on that.
I agree with that though. That's actually an interesting point because especially that whole like Vince and Jason thing as well. Like it was always Jason being involved in these. Like it was Jason and Lab, Jason and Vince, like Jason and whoever. And for me, like that was the only kind of Lab thing. Lab had never done me dirty. Lab had tried to include me in alliances. Like I had no reason to take Lab to be some sort of like shady, messy player. So when it was the whole thing, I was kind of just like I feel like some people just like want some drama, like they're just trying to make good TV. So for me, I was just like, I'll just tune this out and like if it becomes an issue, whatever, we'll deal with it then. But I completely
Yeah,
agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of my read like pretty early on in the game too. I actually talked to John about it because John at the first swap, his like biggest thing before he went MIA was like, we have to pull in Jason. He's like the extra number here. He was like really like paranoid about Mads, Fifi, and Lav turning on us, which I never understood, but like that was his perspective, and so he was like, we need to get Jason so that we have like a third number with us, and I was completely cool with that. Um, Talked with Jason. I enjoyed Jason. Jason was fun to play with throughout the whole season.
Hmm.
But I think there was a point though where John in that round was like, "Okay, I think I'm gonna make an alliance between the three of us," and I said, "Okay." And then 15 minutes later, I double backed and I was like, "Wait, have you requested that yet?" And he was like, "No, why?" And I was like, "Okay, maybe don't." And my whole thing was like, I get that Essa was probably also messy, but
Hmm.
Jason being like part of that ordeal too and being so like free with that information once he did get to a swap tribe was a red flag for me because I was like, I feel like if we start an alliance with Jason and he's not fully committed on it, that's 100% going to other people.
Yeah.
And for my game, I was like, don't do it because if you go home this round, I'm screwed. So
Yeah, and at that point you were aligned with so many people too. Like, I think there's like a limit of like how many cookie jars you want your hands in because it just
yeah,
gets so much harder to balance after like that threshold.
for sure.
I would have voted for Lab if it was probably a Lab Shep Tristan final three. I think it would have been really hard for me to decide between Lab and Frazier at a final three. I think it would have really come down to how compelling I found their FTC speeches. And I'm curious whether Frazier's FTC speech would have been perceived more favorably if I wasn't there. But also I've been thinking like if Spencer had just like not talked in jury chat after being eliminated and had like let it be an FTC reveal, if people would have liked that more or less. Because I feel like there was some certain amount of like souring on the whole situation because it was kind of like a, oh, I got you guys, and everyone was like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all of that too. I like that whole situation was so funny because like I don't know. I didn't feel like from what I read like he was claiming your votes. I think like he
Mm,
just came in kind of hot and was saying like yeah, we were doing that. Like I was part of this and y'all think like I was just like sitting around doing nothing, but I was actually like a pretty like vital factor and like he got roasted for it and like it was a whole thing. But while like he's getting like absolutely cooked in the jury chat, I was like, damn, I feel bad for Spencer, and I just DM'd him, and all I said was, I believe you. So I was
yeah.
just
The
I
worst.
think also like people were in denial. It felt like to me, like they like didn't even want to believe that that was like a possibility at all. But like it made complete sense to me.
Right. I mean, like, how else would we have been, like, things, I don't know. I guess I don't know how those things would have gone down if, like, there wasn't some, like, factor that people weren't considering. You know, like the bouncing back and forth, like I would have had to be like an absolute god tier like mind reader to pull that off without having Spencer or Frazier involved.
Yeah,
Flattering people believe that, but you know. Um I had a whole thought and now I don't remember. Oh, I was gonna say the worst part of winning or making it to FTC was I didn't get to see that Ponderosa chat because it sounds like it was highly entertaining and then like they don't let us read it after. But I feel like there's probably some juicy little
it
moments in
was
there.
it was so funny. It was just like yeah, it was like I don't know. It felt like they were picking and choosing almost like who they wanted to get mad with, which I thought was funny. There was like a whole saga in there too. Like I don't know. Vince was ready to throw hands with everyone. It felt like, and so if you like didn't just accept what Vince was saying right away. It became like a whole argument. And there was a point where like they were having like the third or fourth argument of like the Ponderosa chat, and Kyler and I were just DMing like, "I'm scared. What's happening?"
Dads are fighting. It's a good time. All right, have you been watching Normandy so far?
I have.
Who are your top three favorites so far?
I love the Rami Marty duo. I can't lie. Like
Oh, it's so
their
good.
their dynamic is wonderful. Um, I think other than that, like I think my third would have to be Max, just because like I have like more of that connection. We played the speed together before the season began, so I kind of understand his game going into it, and I think he's just kind of a fun character in general.
He is.
Um, but I really want Rowan to be good too because of the speed as well. Played with him. He's got some spark to him for sure. There was a moment in the speed where like there was this whole like train of like advantages that came out, and right after he played his idol, I said like damn or something like that. And he was like, "You're not slick, Gersh," and like I didn't even vote for him, but like I don't know. He just seems like he could be really fun too, and like the parchment shenanigans are wonderful. I just wish he was sharing a little more about his mindset in confessionals.
Yeah, I agree. Those are some good ones. Robin's been dropping some good confessionals too recently, and I feel like Shelby
Mhm.
has my heart in terms of her like sitting on Exile being like, "Hey, give me something to do." Like, I just like being busy in orgs, so if I had to sit there in Exile with nothing to do, no searching, no challenge, I would also be like losing my mind. Um, but I feel like this cast is also so much more like I feel like pre-merge for our season was so procedural in a way where
Mhm.
there wasn't I mean there were some moments of chaos, but it wasn't like the same level here. Whereas this, it's just like people are so willing to take shots. People are kind of more willing to make emotional decisions, I think, than like purely strategic. And from a spectator point of view, it's highly entertaining. And I think as someone who has like hidden gamebot tendencies, I would really struggle to play with them.
Yeah, yeah. I think the major difference between like Normandy and the Shadowlands is like we were like almost like a vibe season. Like I feel like pretty much the whole way through it was just kind of like who's lacking the most socially.
Hmm.
To an extent. Obviously, there's exceptions there, but I feel like this season is a lot more of like there's a strategic power structure, and it's kind of following that. We're seeing like people at the bottom of trust rankings go pretty early, but there's still like a struggle going on before that happens.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Living vicariously through the T-Spec chat. All right. Any last thoughts?
Um, no, I think I'm good.
This was fun. Should
Yeah, it
have more
was.
podcasts. I hope everyone tunes in for Tottenham Hotspur matches this week. Come on, you Spurs. Gersh and I will be watching every week.
That's right.
And there's a strong correlation to be good at being good at orgs and watching Spurs. So take
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. Farewell. Bye.